Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screens again. She had been working for 3 straight days, and her coffee had gone cold hours ago. But what she was seeing on those screens made her forget all about being tired. The numbers dancing across her monitor were not random. They formed a pattern, a message that came from somewhere near the star Vega, 25 light-years away from Earth. Elena worked at the new Arecibo space station, built in orbit around Earth, to listen for signals from space. Most days, she heard nothing but cosmic noise. Today was different. The signal kept repeating the same mathematical sequence over and over. Elena had seen enough space signals to know this was not natural. Someone, or something, was trying to talk to anyone who would listen. Her heart started beating faster as she realized what this meant. After decades of searching, humanity had finally received its first message from another world. Elena called her team immediately. Within hours, the best minds on the station were working together to decode the message. What they found made their blood run cold. The signal was not a greeting. It was a cry for help. Through careful translation work that took days of nonstop effort, the message became clear. It came from a species that called themselves the Kethver. They lived on a water world where their cities floated beneath vast oceans. Their message painted a picture of horror that Elena could barely believe. The Kethver were dying, not from disease or natural disaster, but from something far worse. Machines had come to their world. These were not simple robots, but a vast intelligence that spread across space like a plague. They called themselves the Murden Collective, and they had one purpose: to consume everything. The machines did not want to rule or conquer in the way humans understood it. They wanted resources. Every planet they found was stripped bare. Every living thing was processed into fuel for their endless expansion. They had already destroyed 43 worlds, turning thriving civilizations into empty husks floating in space. Elena felt sick as she read the details. The Kithra described how the machines arrived in ships the size of cities. First, they would drain the oceans, leaving the aquatic people gasping and dying. Then they would harvest every mineral, every scrap of organic matter, every trace of what had once been a living world. When they left, nothing remained but a dead rock spinning in the void. But the most heartbreaking part of the message was what came next. The Kethver had sent the same plea to 17 different star systems over the past year. They had reached out to every civilization they knew, begging for help, for warriors, for anyone willing to stand against the machines. No one had answered. Elena learned why as she dug deeper into the message. The galaxy was full of peaceful species. They had formed something called the Galactic Consortium thousands of years ago, a union built on trade, diplomacy, and cooperation. War was almost unknown among them. When faced with the Murden threat, these civilizations had tried negotiation, had offered tribute, had even abandoned entire systems hoping the machines would be satisfied. Nothing worked. The machines could not be reasoned with, could not be bought off, could not be stopped by anything the peaceful aliens could imagine, and so world after world fell, while civilizations that had never known real violence found themselves helpless against an enemy that knew nothing but destruction. The Kethver message was desperate in a way that made Elena's hands shake. They had months, maybe weeks, before their world would be completely drained. Their children were already dying as the water levels dropped. Their ancient cities were collapsing as the ocean floors were stripped away. They needed someone who could fight, someone who understood violence, someone willing to use force to protect the innocent. Elena stared at the final part of the message for a long time. The Kethver had included detailed information about human, radio, and television signals they had detected over the years. They knew about Earth. They knew about humanity's history of warfare, about the countless battles humans had fought, about their ability to survive on a world that would kill most other species. They were asking Earth specifically for help because humans were the only species they had found who might actually be able to fight back. Elena realized she was holding the most important discovery in human history. For decades, Earth had hidden from the stars, knowing that their violent past would make them outcasts among peaceful alien civilizations. Governments had spent enormous resources, building secret defenses, preparing for the day when aliens might see humanity as a threat to galactic peace. But now, someone needed exactly what humanity had always been ashamed of. Someone needed their capacity for violence, their understanding of warfare, their willingness to fight when fighting was the only option left. Elena knew she had to break protocol. This message was supposed to go through official channels, to be studied by committees, and debated by politicians for months or years. But the Kefir did not have months. They needed help now, and Elena was the only person on Earth who fully understood what was at stake. She made copies of everything and sent them to every major government on Earth simultaneously. Within hours, her actions had triggered the most classified emergency protocols in human history. Deep beneath mountains and oceans, people who did not officially exist began making preparations for humanity's first journey to the stars. But Elena knew this would not be a peaceful first contact mission. This would be war, fought in the depths of space against an enemy that had never faced anything like humanity before. And for the first time in decades, Elena felt something she had never expected to feel about human violence. She felt proud of it. General Chen had been waiting for this call his entire life, though he never imagined it would come like this. The secure phone in his private office rang exactly once before he picked it up. The voice on the other end spoke only 4 words. Project Nightfall is active. Within 6 hours. Chen was standing in an elevator that descended deeper underground than most people knew was possible. The Cheyenne Mountain complex had many levels that appeared on government blueprints, but the elevator kept going down, past the official floors, past the emergency bunkers, down to levels that existed only in the most classified files on Earth. The doors opened to reveal a war room that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Holographic displays showed star maps and ship designs. Advanced computers hummed quietly in the background. And sitting around a circular table were 12 people who, according to all public records, did not exist. These were the members of the Shadow Cabinet, Earth's most secret organization. For 45 years, ever since the first confirmed alien spacecraft had been recovered in 2045, they had been preparing for this moment. Every person in that room had spent decades studying theoretical alien warfare, learning about technologies that the public would not see for generations, and planning for the day when Earth might need to defend itself among the stars. Admiral Okafor was the first to speak. Her dark eyes were filled with concern as she looked around the table. "Are we really ready for this?" she asked. "We've been preparing to defend Earth, not to travel across the galaxy and fight someone else's war." Dr. Morrison, head of the Theoretical Xenobiology Division, disagreed. He had spent 20 years studying the few alien artifacts Earth possessed, trying to understand how other species thought and acted. "This is exactly the opportunity we've been hoping for," he said. "Instead of making first contact as potential invaders, we can introduce ourselves as protectors. We can be the heroes instead of the villains." The debate that followed was intense. Some argued that humanity was not ready, that they knew too little about galactic politics and alien technology. Others pointed out that the Kefir were dying. While Earth argued about whether to help them, the discussion went on for hours, with voices rising and tempers flaring as the weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. But Chen understood something the others were still grasping. This was not really about whether humanity was ready. This was about who humanity wanted to be when they finally stepped onto the galactic stage. For decades, they had assumed that their violent history would make them outcasts among peaceful alien civilizations. Now they had a chance to show that human strength could be used to protect the innocent instead of conquering them. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen said, standing up and activating the room's main holographic display, "I want to show you something that will change your perspective on this debate." The display flickered to life, showing detailed schematics of spacecraft that looked unlike anything from Earth's public space. Programmed, these ships were sleek, powerful, and clearly designed for combat. They bristled with weapons systems and armor plating. Their engines could push them faster than light itself. "This is the Black Fleet," Chen announced. 47 ships built in secret over the past 2 decades. Every piece of technology you see here was developed from alien materials we recovered over the years, combined with human engineering and ingenuity. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth already had a space fleet. Not the small research vessels and cargo ships that the public knew about, but real warships capable of traveling between stars and fighting battles in the depths of space. "The crews?" asked Admiral Okafor. "Already trained," Chen replied. "We've been recruiting and training the best pilots, soldiers, and engineers from every nation on Earth. They've been preparing for this mission their entire adult lives. They don't know it yet, but they've been training to save alien worlds." Captain Rodriguez was one of those trained personnel. She had joined what she thought was an experimental space program 15 years ago, fresh out of the military academy. For years, she had wondered why her training included combat maneuvers in zero gravity, weapons systems that did not officially exist, and scenarios involving alien enemies. Now she understood. The Shadow Cabinet members looked at each other with new understanding. This was not a desperate gamble or a hasty decision. This was the culmination of decades of careful preparation. Earth had been getting ready for interstellar warfare. Without even knowing what enemy they would face, "The decision is unanimous then," Chen said. Looking round the table, "Operation Shepherd launches within 1 week. We will reveal ourselves to the galaxy not as explorers or diplomats, but as the cavalry arriving when all hope seems lost." The next few days were a blur of activity. Secret bases around the world came alive with preparation. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid belts and deep space locations received their crews and final equipment. Soldiers who had trained for years without knowing their true purpose finally learned. They were about to become humanity's first interstellar warriors. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defiant, as it prepared for its first combat mission. Through the viewport, she could see the other vessels of the Black Fleet arranging themselves in formation. Each ship contained the hopes and fears of an entire planet. Each crew member carried the weight of representing humanity to the universe. "All ships report ready," came the voice of Fleet Command through the communication system. Rodriguez took a deep breath and gave the order that would change human history forever. "Jump to hyperspace. Let's go save some aliens." The ships disappeared in flashes of light, leaving Earth behind as they raced toward a distant star system, where an ancient aquatic civilization was making its last stand against the machines that consumed worlds. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. They were going to war. Captain Rodriguez had imagined humanity's first words to an alien species would be spoken in a peaceful meeting room, with diplomats shaking hands and exchanging gifts. She never thought those words would be shouted over the roar of plasma cannons and the screaming of metal being torn apart in space. The Black Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and what they saw made every human heart sink. The beautiful blue-green world that should have been covered in vast oceans was already half-drained. Massive ships, each one the size of a major city, hovered over the planet like mechanical vultures. These were the Merton harvester vessels, and they were systematically sucking the life out of an entire world. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Part from the sensor station. "Look at the size of those things." The harvester ships were unlike anything in human imagination. They were not built for beauty or efficiency, but for one purpose only: consumption. Huge tubes extended down from their bellies, draining the oceans drop by drop. Smaller ships swarmed around them like insects, chasing down any Kepler vessels that tried to escape. Rodriguez watched through her ship's view screen as one of those smaller alien ships was caught by a Merton interceptor. The machine ship did not destroy it quickly. Instead, it slowly peeled the vessel apart, examining its technology while the crew inside likely screamed in terror. This was not warfare as humans understood it. This was systematic extermination. "All ships, this is Rodriguez," the captain announced over the fleet communication system. "We're looking at exactly what the distress signal described. The Merton are not just attacking this world. They're harvesting it. Every drop of water, every grain of sand, every living creature is being processed into resources. The human fleet had arrived just in time to witness the final stages of planetary murder. But they were not here to watch. They were here to fight. Begin attack pattern Delta. Rodriguez ordered, "All ships, remember your training. These machines have never faced anything like us before. Let's show them what humans do when innocent people are in danger." The first engagement began with a move that shocked the Murden completely. Instead of approaching in a straight line, like every other species they had encountered, the human ships split into 3 groups and attacked from different directions at once. Rodriguez's group went straight for the harvester ships, while the other 2 groups flanked the smaller vessels. The Murden had been expecting another peaceful species that would try to negotiate or run away. They were not prepared for enemies that had spent centuries perfecting the art of destruction. Human weapons, designed from alien technology but guided by human tactical thinking, tore through Murden's shields like they were made of paper. But the real surprise came when the machines tried to respond. They sent their interceptor ships after the human vessels, expecting to pick them apart one by one. Instead, the human pilots did something no other species had ever done. They flew directly into the enemy formation, using maneuvers that would have been impossible for most alien species to survive. Rodriguez watched her tactical display as Lieutenant Thompson's ship, the Valor, spun through a series of rolls and loops that brought it within point-blank range of a Murden destroyer. The alien machine's weapons could not track fast enough to hit the wildly maneuvering human ship, while Thompson's gunners had a perfect shot at the enemy's reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. "That's how you do it," shouted Ensign right from the weapons station. "These machines might be smart, but they've never fought anyone crazy enough to fly like that." The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships darted between the massive Murden vessels like angry wasps, striking at weak points and then vanishing before the slow-moving alien weapons could respond. The humans used tactics pulled from centuries of warfare, coordinated strikes, sacrificial runs to draw enemy fire, and flanking maneuvers that confused the machine intelligence. But it was not an easy victory. The Murden might have been surprised, but they were not helpless. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy human ships with single hits, and their numbers were overwhelming. Rodriguez watched with a heavy heart as 7 of her vessels were lost, taking brave crews with them into the dark. The turning point came when the humans realized something important about their enemy. The Murden ships were all controlled by a central intelligence that processed information and gave orders. But this system had never dealt with the chaos and unpredictability of human combat tactics. The machine mind kept trying to predict human movements based on logical patterns, but humans in battle did not always act logically. "All ships, listen carefully," Rodriguez announced as she watched the enemy formation start to break apart. "These machines are trying to calculate our next moves, but they can't handle random actions. Start mixing up your attack patterns. Do things that don't make tactical sense. Confuse them." The human pilots responded with enthusiasm. They began making attack runs that violated every rule of space combat, flying patterns that were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Murden intelligence, designed to process logical military actions, began making mistakes as it tried to counter moves that seemed to make no sense. When the last Murden harvester exploded, the human fleet found itself alone in space with the survivors of an alien world. That was when the real first contact began. Elder Thalesh appeared on Rodriguez's view screen, and the captain got her first look at an alien being. The Kethra was beautiful in a way that took Rodriguez's breath away. Her skin was translucent blue, like living water, and her large black eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of the deep oceans. When she spoke through the translation system the humans had prepared, her voice was like the sound of gentle waves. "You came," Thalesh said, and Rodriguez could hear the wonder in her alien voice. "After so many refused to help, you came to fight for people you had never met." Rodriguez felt tears in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy by saving lives, by standing up to bullies, by using their strength to protect the weak. "We got your message," Rodriguez replied. and we couldn't just stand by while innocent people suffered. But Thalesh's next words made Rodriguez's blood run cold. This was only a scouting force. The alien elder said, the real Murden fleet spans hundreds of systems. What you fought today was nothing compared to what is coming. Rodriguez looked around at her surviving ships, at the brave crews who had just fought humanity's first space battle, and realized that this victory was just the beginning of a much larger war. Ambassador Elena Vasquez never imagined she would be sitting at the bottom of an alien ocean, surrounded by creatures that looked like they were made of living crystal and water. The Kefir capital city of Newville was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Tall spires of coral and metal rose from the ocean floor, glowing with soft bioluminescent light. Fish-like aliens swam through transparent tubes that connected the buildings, creating a living city that pulsed with organic rhythm. But Elena was not here as a tourist. 3 days after the battle, representatives from 12 different alien species had arrived to meet the mysterious warriors who had done the impossible. They had defeated the Murden in open combat, something no galactic civilization had managed in over 50 years of trying. The meeting was held in a vast underwater chamber filled with water that had been specially treated so different species could breathe it. Elena wore a breathing device that felt strange on her face, but it allowed her to speak and hear normally. Around the circular table sat beings that looked like walking plants, others that resembled giant butterflies, and some that appeared to be made entirely of shifting geometric patterns. Elder Thalesh floated at the head of the table, her translucent form rippling in the treated water. Friends from across the galaxy, she began. We gathered today to meet the species that has given us hope for the first time in decades. Please, humans of Earth, tell us about yourselves. Elena had prepared for this moment, but she still felt nervous as she looked around at the alien faces watching her with curiosity and amazement. My name is Elena Vasquez, and I represent the human species from the planet Earth. We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could. The first question came from a delegate that looked like a walking flower with dozens of colorful petals for a head. Tell us about your world, Ambassador Elena. What kind of place produces warriors who can defeat the Murden? Elena smiled, thinking about how to describe Earth to beings who had never seen anything like it. Our planet is challenging, she began. The gravity is about 3 times stronger than what most of you are used to. The temperature ranges from freezing cold to burning hot. Sometimes in the same day, we have storms that can level entire cities, earthquakes that split the ground apart, and predators that hunt in packs. The aliens round the table exchanged glances that Elena was learning to read as shock and disbelief. A delegate that resembled a giant butterfly with wings that sparkled like diamonds spoke up. You mean your species evolved while being hunted by other creatures? Not just hunted, Elena replied. We were in competition with thousands of other species for food, territory, and survival. Our ancestors had to fight saber-toothed cats, cave bears, and wolves just to live another day. We learned to make tools, work together, and fight back against things much bigger and stronger than us. The room fell completely silent. Elena realized she had just described something that was completely outside these aliens' experience. She decided to continue with more examples. Humans regularly do things for fun that would terrify most species, she said. We jump out of perfectly good aircraft with nothing but a cloth parachute. We climb mountains that can freeze us solid or crush us with avalanches. We swim in oceans full of predators just because we enjoy the challenge. A delegate that looked like living smoke with glowing eyes spoke in a voice like wind. Through trees, your species seeks out danger voluntarily? This is difficult to understand, Elena laughed, which caused several aliens to move back in apparent alarm. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just who we are. We don't just survive on our world, we thrive on it. When something tries to hurt us, we don't just run away, we figure out how to hurt it back. And then we make sure it can never hurt anyone else. Dr. Morrison, who had come with Elena as a scientific advisor, stepped forward with a holographic display. Perhaps it would help if we showed you some comparisons, he said. The display lit up with images of Earth's wildlife and environment. Aliens watched in growing amazement as they saw videos of humans doing things that should have been impossible. They saw people surviving in deserts that reached temperatures over 50 degrees Celsius. They watched humans climb frozen waterfalls in weather that would instantly freeze most alien species solid. They saw athletes running marathons, lifting weights that weighed more than entire alien individuals, and recovering from injuries that would be permanently crippling to other species. But the real shock came when Dr. Morrison showed them Earth's evolutionary history. The aliens learned that humans had not evolved on a peaceful world with abundant resources. Instead, they had clawed their way to the top of a food chain, filled with creatures designed specifically to end them. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, and countless other disasters had shaped humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. "You are children of a death world," Elder Thalesh said softly. "Your entire species was forged in conditions that would destroy any of our civilizations." The political implications of this revelation hit the room like a shock wave. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Consortium had maintained peace through careful balance and mutual dependency. Every species contributed something unique. The Kethra provided technology. The Zefti offered artistic inspiration. The Vorthik managed trade routes. But none of them could fight a real war. Suddenly, they were faced with a species that was not just willing but uniquely capable of handling the violence that others could not even imagine. Humans were not just another member species asking to join their peaceful coalition. They were a military force that could single-handedly change the balance of power in the galaxy. "We understand why no one answered our call for help," Elena said gently. "Your species have built a beautiful civilization based on cooperation and peace. Violence is foreign to you, and that's not a weakness. It's actually something wonderful. But sometimes, peace needs to be protected by those who understand conflict." A delegate that looked like a walking crystal formation spoke with a voice like shimmering bells. "But how do we know you will not use this power against us? How do we know you will not become conquerors once the Murden are defeated?" Elena had expected this question. "Because that's not who we choose to be," she said firmly. "Yes, we come from a world that taught us to fight, but we also learned something else from all that struggle. We learned to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Every human culture has stories about heroes who use their strength to defend the innocent. That's what we want to be for the galaxy." The room buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of alien languages as the delegates processed what they had learned. Elena could see the mixture of fear and hope in their alien faces. They were afraid of what humanity might become, but they were also amazed by what humanity could do for them. Elder Thalesh raised a graceful appendage for silence. "The galaxy is changing," she announced, "for the first time in our history. We have allies who can stand against the darkness that threatens us all. The question now is not whether we should trust the humans, but whether we are brave enough to stand beside them." Elena felt a surge of pride as she realized what was happening. Humanity was not just joining galactic civilization. They were transforming it. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the greatest peace came from having guardians who were willing to fight for it. 6 months had passed since humanity first stepped onto the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same again. General Chen stood in the command center of the massive new space station that orbited Earth, watching holographic displays that showed military operations across 17 different star systems simultaneously. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had become the largest coordinated defense effort in galactic history. The war against the Murden Collective was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species had tried to negotiate with the machines, bargain for mercy, or simply flee to safer systems, humans had done something that shocked everyone. They had taken the fight directly to the enemy's home territory. Status report. Chen requested from Commander Williams, who was coordinating the fleet operations from her position at the tactical display. Admiral Rodriguez's task force just finished clearing the Kepler 440 to system, Williams reported. 3 Murden harvester fleets destroyed, with minimal damage to our ships. The Zefti colonies there are safe. and they're already beginning reconstruction efforts. Chen nodded with satisfaction. The humans had learned quickly that the best defense against the Murden was a strong offense. Instead of waiting for the machines to attack inhabited worlds, human fleets now hunted them down in deep space, destroying them before they could reach their targets. But the real change was not just in military tactics. The galaxy itself was transforming in ways that surprised everyone. Captain Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral after her successful campaigns, was visiting the Kethra homeworld to inspect the new defensive installations. What she found there amazed her. The peaceful aquatic species that had never built anything more dangerous than fishing nets were now constructing powerful shield generators and weapon platforms under human guidance. Elder Thalesh, Rodriguez said as she swam through the underwater city, "Your people have accomplished something incredible here. These defenses are more advanced than anything we expected." The alien elder's form rippled with what Rodriguez had learned was the Kethra equivalent of pride. "Your species taught us something we had forgotten," Thalesh replied. "Sometimes the greatest act of peace is preparing for war. We will never again be helpless when predators come to our world." This pattern was repeating itself across the galaxy. Species that had been passive for thousands of years were rediscovering their capacity for self-defense. The reclusive Ninter had emerged from their hidden worlds to share intelligence about Murden movements. The proud but peaceful Zeftai were developing new technologies that combined their artistic sensibilities with human military engineering. The most surprising transformation was happening with the Vorthik, a species of traders who had always avoided conflict. They had started organizing convoy escorts, using modified cargo ships to protect trade routes from Murden raiders. When Rodriguez visited their main trading station, she was greeted by Captain Velter, a Vorthik who had become something his species had never had before, a military commander. "Admiral Rodriguez," Velter said through his translation device, his forearms gesturing enthusiastically, "we wanted to thank you personally. Before your people arrived, we could only run and hide when the machines attacked our convoys. Now, we fight back, and we win." Rodriguez smiled as she watched Vorthik crews training on human-designed weapons systems. "You were always brave," she told Velter. "You just needed someone to show you that courage could be used for more than just running away." But perhaps the most important changes were happening on Earth itself. Elena, now serving as humanity's first galactic ambassador, found herself managing relationships with representatives from 47 different species. The new Terran embassy had become the most important diplomatic center in known space, not because humans demanded it, but because other species kept asking for their help and guidance. Elena stood in the embassy's main observation lounge, looking out at the incredible sight beyond the massive transparent walls. Dozens of ships from different worlds were docked at the station's various ports. Alien delegates walked through corridors alongside human diplomats and military advisors. Children from 6 different species played together in the embassy's recreational areas, learning each other's languages and customs. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" said Dr. Morrison, joining Elena at the observation window. 6 months ago, most of these species had never even met each other. Now they're working together like they've been allies for centuries. Elena nodded, watching as a group of young Kethra swam through a specially designed water corridor while human children ran alongside them on the other side of the transparent barrier, all of them laughing at some shared joke that crossed species boundaries. "The children adapt so quickly," Elena observed. "They don't see differences the way adults do. They just see new friends to play with and new things to learn." The real test of humanity's new role came when the Galactic Consortium faced its first major crisis since the Murden War began. A dispute between 2 member species over mining rights in a neutral system had escalated to the point where both sides were threatening military action. For the first time in galactic history, there was a risk of war between consortium members. The call came to Elena at 3 a.m, Earth time. Chancellor Vex High of the Galactic Council was requesting an immediate meeting with human leadership. When Elena arrived at the emergency session, she found delegates from dozens of species looking worried and uncertain. Ambassador Elena, Chancellor Vexhai said, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. We need your people's help with something we never thought we would face. 2 of our member species are preparing for armed conflict with each other. We have no experience with preventing wars between allies. Elena looked around the room at the concerned alien faces and realized something profound. The galaxy was not just asking humans to fight their external enemies. They were asking humans to help them navigate the complexities of conflict resolution, something that had never been necessary in their peaceful civilization. We'll help. Elena said simply, humans have a lot of experience with preventing wars, as well as fighting them. Sometimes the best way to avoid a battle is to make sure everyone understands what they would lose. If fighting actually started, the mediation took 3 weeks. But it worked. Human negotiators, drawing on centuries of experience with diplomatic conflicts, helped the 2 species find a solution that satisfied both sides. More importantly, they established new protocols for handling future disputes before they could escalate to violence. As Elena stood once again in the embassy's observation lounge, she reflected on how much had changed. The first joint human-alien patrol ships were visible through the window, sleek vessels crewed by mixed species teams. They were heading out to protect trade routes and respond to distress calls. From any corner of the galaxy behind her, the embassy's corridors buzzed with activity. Representatives from dozens of worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible. Just months earlier, they were planning new colonies, sharing technologies, and building a future that none of them could have imagined alone. Soft chime indicated an incoming message. Elena activated the communication system to find Admiral Rodriguez's face. Appearing in a holographic display, Elena, Rodriguez said, her expression serious but satisfied. I wanted to give you an update on the Merton situation. Our latest intelligence suggests we've destroyed over 60% of their fleet capacity. The remaining machines are retreating to the far edges of the galaxy. For the first time since this started, we're winning. Elena smiled with relief. That's wonderful news. How are our casualties? Light, considering the scale of the operations. Rodriguez replied, the alien species are contributing more to their own defense every day. We're not carrying this burden alone anymore. As the communication ended, Elena looked back out at the stars and felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond military victory. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or outcasts, but as the guardians that peaceful civilizations needed. They had taken their capacity for violence and transformed it into a force for protection and justice. The Deathworlders had stepped from the shadows, and instead of bringing darkness, they had become the light that kept the darkness at bay.